Shuanise, how's it going?
Well, Charles, how are you?
Oh, come on, I'm doing well. You know you're one of my faves, so ready to rock and roll because I know you're going to be dropping jewels on us all day.
High
Let me.
expectations, my friend. I
So, Shanice, you're no stranger to leadership. You've been in the room, right, since
know.
Altria, probably before that. I mean, you owned your own company. You were the president and CEO of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, and I know you focused primarily on economic development, financial literacy, and wealth creation. But now you're at NAMIC, right? So National Association of Multi-Ethnicity and Communication, and you're still championing for the rights of others. In this case, the rights of diverse candidates within the corporate environment. And I just need to know, where did all of this passion come from?
Wow, great question, Charles. And honestly, diversity has been kind of a lifelong journey for me. And when I say lifelong journey, I would not have characterized it as diversity in the early years. My family traveled a lot. My mom insisted that, me and my siblings were always traveling to other, geographies, countries, etc. Because she said, you need to understand the world. You need to understand the world. You need to understand, you know, people who didn't grow up like you, who do not operate like you. So that was really my beginning. I would also say that, I view diversity as more than ethnicity and gender, which I think is really, really important. For example, I mean, during my corporate career, I would always say that, I am a professional, I'm an executive who also happens to be an African American and a woman.
Yeah.
And I really think that's important because how you view yourself is essentially what you're projecting to others. And that's ultimately what people see. And so that's kind of the ethnic gender piece of it. And I'll also say, look, I'm a proud Southern girl raised and born in the South. And, just a quick story from South Carolina, through my professional matriculation, I find myself in a corporate meeting room in New York City. I'm new on the job. It's like I'm eager and it's like I'm ready to go. And, we go through the whole meeting and I have not said a word. And it's not because I had nothing to say, but, as someone raised in the South, it's a very polite culture, that I was raised in. So it was like, I'm waiting for the pause,
And the pause never
I get
came.
in, came. And I'll never forget that because it was such an inflection point for me. And it's like, okay, that, it's not about, but I needed to understand that I was
Strategy change.
operating in a different environment. And that's an example of corporate diversity as well. I mean, I think people think about diversity a little narrowly in terms of ethnicity and gender, and it's not. I mean, that is obviously a critically important part of it, but it's also about where what your background is, how you were raised, what your expectations are, because all of that plays into how you handle yourself professionally.
No, I'm with you. Introvert, extrovert. You expanded me out. It's diverse, right? That whole dynamic within there. So
Absolutely.
when we look back at 2020, I hate looking back there, right? But we had, racial injustice. We had the economic scenarios brought on by COVID, and where it all began and where we are right now. I don't want to say it makes no difference, but we're here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So companies and corporations, they had to sort of, go through this windy road to get to where they are right now. And from your perspective, how do you view the landscape as it pertains to diversity within hiring and promotions right now?
I'm sorry, Charles. Say that again. You went out on your last.
Yeah. This is how we have to deal with it now, right? Emails come in, you can't stop.
Okay.
But when you look at corporations today, and
Mm-hmm.
corporate landscape, how do you see hiring and promotions as it pertains to diverse candidates now, through your lens of diverse candidates?
Yeah. Great question. And I guess my response, Charles, would be that I don't see it any differently than how I saw it before 2020. Diverse candidates still need to be doing all the things that they should be doing in terms of networking, making connections, staying connected to all relevant persons. And relevant is not just, uh, who's above someone, but it's also, who is at the same level that you are, making sure that you're the same and connected. And obviously the pandemic has made it a bit more challenging in that we are all working remotely. But we have to be creative. I encourage people to be creative in making sure that they're staying connected. Because we are all staying connected. The fact that, as an industry, retention still remains a problem within this industry. We need to be focused on that. We need to get behind, okay, the why is that so? And be real and honest and earnest about what that means and what that looks like.
I'm with you. You mentioned networking a couple of seconds ago.
Mm-hmm.
How does networking and mentorship aid within, that matriculation through a person's professional career?
Yeah, I would say, Charles, well, first of all, networking, it's awkward for everybody. Let me just put it out there, okay? I mean, it's awkward for everybody, but it is an absolute necessity. And when I say it's an absolute necessity, look, networking helps you to develop and improve your skill set, stay on top of the latest trends in your industry, meet potential mentors, as well as gaining the necessary resources that will foster your career development. Let's say virtual room now. Okay, you're walking into a room, social environment, the CEO, the entire C-suite is in there. You've got the benefit or opportunity to be in that space. Before you, and look, you would know you're going to be in that space before you're in that space.
You better.
So, look, networking is a strategy just like everything else. So you need to understand, okay, so what does my CEO read every day that keeps him abreast of what's going on with our company and our business? What are the other C-suite executives reading, and what are they focused on when it comes to our company? So you need to know those things, and quite frankly, you don't know them until you ask the question. So if this is your first time into an environment where you have the opportunity to engage them, ask them. From a Cox perspective, it's okay. So Pat, what keeps you up at night? What are you reading? How are you keeping up with our industry? And you know what? You want to focus on those same things, because the next time you're in that room with Pat, it's, you have then done your due diligence and focused on those things. And, you're then able and ready to engage him in a conversation on some of those,
What's funny about that? I consulted for a long time, right? And I found that outside of doing my job and hopefully doing it well enough to stay, a lot of the relational conversations that took place that made me separate from other consultants was just what you said. I remember being in a room with whoever the leader was at that time, and we happened to be talking about stocks or something else,
Yeah.
right? And I won't say the name, but that leader, the director or whatever title person was at that time, ran down the hall because he heard I was in the room with this person. And he comes in, he tries to slow down, turn the corner. And, we both sort of looked at each other and like, all right, party's over. And he's, and this is when I'm in wireless. He's like, oh yes, and this site and, site acquisition, da, da, da. And so like, yeah, I got to let you guys get back to it. And he gave me that look like, lunch, we'll talk about this, we'll finish the conversation. I'm like, eventually that person came over and said, that relationship, that bond, I said, dude, there are some times where you're going to talk about something, you're going to give a status update, but there's also times where you're letting your hair down and you're talking as a person to another person. And if you don't know what you like, as well as what that person likes, so that you could have a conversation about various topics, that connection is going to be really hard to establish. So I'm with you, I get you, right? And if that person happens to be your president or whoever else, you would want to know, hey, you like basketball, you like golf, what's your team, etc.
Right.
Be authentic within your conversation, keep it real, but still have enough knowledge to be able to have a conversation about somebody's likes or interests, invest a little bit of time to be able to build that relationship, right?
Absolutely.
Now, a couple of questions and then, we'll wrap up. But about you and you being a leader, right? Because I've had the privilege of you being our leader at NAMIC, and B, one of my mentors, right? I know how I would describe your leadership style, but I would want to hear it from you in terms of how you describe your leadership style today, and maybe even give us a little tidbit of how it evolved over time.
Wow. That's always a loaded question, Charles. And my first response is, it really depends on the situation. Being a good leader means being an agile leader. Yes. So if that's the style, if you're asking me to label it in some way, that's really it. And being agile is being able to meet the moment and the situation as it occurs. Look, I can go through several different leadership styles in one day, quite frankly. Information dictates that. Whether it's authoritative, pace setter, democratic, and quite frankly, and I know this is old school, but quite frankly, even being autocratic, at the end of the day, it's like, look, we got to get it done. Okay. And so that leaves less time for input, collaboration. I got to move things forward. And I say that because, coming into NAMIC, as our beloved organization, but also coming into NAMIC at a time where it's like, okay, we got to go at light speed. We can't move at, every time the moon circles what is it? I'm not an astronomist. So it's like every time the moon circles the sun or vice versa, we got to get some things done. So, I'm sure my team would say they may not call it autocratic, probably direct, but that's what needed to be employed these first 2 years. And we've had a really good first 2 years, and that said, it's not only leadership style, but it's also the things that I value, it's like integrity, honesty, big on accountability, okay? And individuals owning their own personal growth and development. I mean, that's huge for me. That's huge for me. You know, I mean, and look, I come to the table with skin in the game, and I'm willing to put skin in the game. I lead by example. But I need to see that as well. You know, I want to inspire, engage, but I also need people to understand that they need to do that for themselves as well. Because at the end of the day, your professional career is something you own. And, you know, if you believe that it belongs to somebody else, then you're already in a bad posture. Okay, you're just already in a bad posture.
So it's interesting because, you know, every once in a while, you know, leaders, they want to, we never look, you know, dare I say we, never look for a pat on the back, but every once in a while, it's not bad to have one. Mm-hmm. You had the ultimate pat on the back. I think it was 20.
Well, I don't know that, Charles.
Oh, yes, you do. Well, I'm about to remind you. 2013,
okay.
Black Caucus Foundation dinner. Right? Oh, let's be clear. I have the video.
I want to thank Shuanise Washington and everybody at the CBC Foundation for doing so much to help all our young people achieve their God-given potential.
So, yes, you have President Barack Obama give you a shout out and say thank you for your leadership. I mean, that right there, kudos.
Yeah.
You can't get any better than that.
He did it for, look, I feel really good about my tenure and term with the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. You know, I got to know President Obama, First Lady Michelle Obama really well. And, you know, for those in our viewing audience who might wonder, are they really who they appear to be and seem to be? I can say from personal experience that they are. And I will forever be grateful that I was able to run that organization during his tenure as the president, the first African-American president of the United States. I mean, huge, huge, huge. So, yeah.
So I'm gonna get you out of here on this one. I knew I was gonna get you with that one.
You did.
It's the tail end of Women's History Month, right?
Okay.
And I just want to get a couple of individuals who inspired you, you know, as you were coming up.
You know, I go back to my family, Charles, and, you know, I am a proud beneficiary of a number of strong women. You know, my mom, my godmother, aunts, cousins, etc. And I say all that to say that, you know, this group of women were a cadre of, you know, diverse individuals amongst themselves, albeit women. You know, my mother was a registered nurse, a professional. You know, I had cousins who owned their own businesses. I had, you know, family members who were housewives, never worked a day in their lives. You know, they were gay, I shouldn't say gay, or lesbian, or however you want to describe it. But my point is, I grew up in an environment of women that allowed me to see a number of different possibilities. You know, it was, okay, so whatever you want to do, you can do. And I have, it's Women's History Month, but I also need to give a shout out to the enlightened men in my world and in my space who supported us women or these women, you know, and, you know, and I think that's really important. You know, I mean, the young girls, young women can see a lot of different facets of what it means to be a woman. And it really is what the woman decides she wants to be, you know? And so that's how I grew up. And so that allowed me to see, you know, whatever was possible, whatever it is I wanted to do, I could do. So that's kind of on the personal side. The other side, I would lift up publicly Dr. Dorothy Irene Height, who was also one of my mentors. She transitioned in 2010, but Dr. Height ran the National Council for Negro Women. She was a mentee of Mary McLeod Bethune. And when I was in my last corporate role, my office was like, you know, maybe 3 blocks down from hers on Constitution or Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C. And so she called, oh, and let me just say this. Dr. Height was credited as the first leader in the civil rights movement to recognize inequality for women and African Americans as problems that should be considered as whole. You know, which was huge. I mean, she marched alongside, you know, Dr. Martin Luther King and the other civil rights leaders at that time. But I'll never forget when I got the phone call from her. And she says, well, Miss Washington, I need to see you. And for those who know Dr. Height, it's like when you get that phone call, it's not a question. It's basically a summons, you know. And so I marched my little hiney down to her office, you know, and we're having tea. And she says, okay, you are going to be the new chairman of the board, the first woman chair of the board for the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation. And I said, okay.
Voluntold, right?
He's like, oh, you know, we've never had a woman. You know how I feel about you. You know what I think about you. So it wasn't even optional. It was, look, this is what needs to happen. You're the one that I am convinced that needs to do this. And so I became the first board chair of this national organization, and it's still thriving, still very engaged in advocacy, you know, to this day. But I will just never forget her making that phone call. And it's like, okay, you know, it's like when Dr. Height calls, I mean, look, and she is the woman that Ford would give a car to every year or every year on her birthday. Okay. Look, so again, whoever is listening and watching, if you don't know anything about Dr. Dorothy Height, then you need to learn about her, because she was right there. She was one of the only women marching alongside Dr. King, A. Philip Randolph, and others. And for her to embrace me that way and acknowledge, you know, my skill set and what she thought I brought to the table, I'll just never forget. I'll just always treasure it. So
yeah, and you should, right? Well, your story is still being written, so you know you still have a lot to be seen, right? When it comes to you, you know, NAMIC is proud and happy to have you.
Thank you.
Happy to have you as a mentor and a friend. So I thank you for coming on our coffee talk. And I told everybody in the beginning you're going to be dropping jewels. So thank you for not disappointing them. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Charles. And I salute you as the new president of NAMIC Atlanta. You're doing a phenomenal job. And you know I'm always here for you. So
I got you.
okay.